This is Mario Andretti, and you are listening to Below the Yellow Line.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Below the Yellow Line, part of the Elevation 5280 Sports Network. My name is Samuel Stubbs, proud to be your host of Below the Yellow Line, a show that'll break down, analyze, and preview every race in the world of NASCAR and break down every bit of news coming out of the NASCAR world. Thank you to Michael and the team at E5280 Sports for bringing me on as a part of their team. Thrilled to be the newest member of their On Air Talent podcast team. Breaking down, talking about NASCAR. You certainly don't have to pull on my leg ever to talk about racing, whether it be IndyCar, short track racing, dirt track racing, whatever it may be, but certainly not NASCAR. So big thank you to the team over at e5280sports.com. Check them out. Again, that's e5280sports.com today to check those guys out. We're starting the show not necessarily in the middle of the NASCAR season. It is closer to the beginning of the NASCAR season. 5 weeks have passed since Daytona. We are going into week 6 at Circuit of the Americas. 2 races happened this past weekend at Bristol Motor Speedway in Bristol, Tennessee. We're going to break down the truck race. We're going to break down the Cup race. Then we're going to preview trucks at Circuit of the Americas, a road course in Austin, Texas. Preview the NASCAR Xfinity Series at Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. And preview the NASCAR Cup Series in Austin, Texas. That'll be our first episode. We'll have interviews. We'll have guest interviews on this show from time to time. We'll talk about news, but mainly we're going to talk about these races. We're going to break down. We're going to analyze. We're going to scrutinize every inch of these races, talk about the results, talk about the point standings, which guys are good here, which guys are bad here. It's going to be a fun time. It's going to be a fun show, and I thank you for letting me be a part of your afternoon, your evening, your morning, your 2 a.m., getting your life in shape NASCAR trip. So we're going to start with the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series race, the Weather Guard truck race at Bristol Motor Speedway, won by Christian Eckes. Last year, in I believe the fall race in the Truck Series, that race was won by Corey Heim. Christian Eckes, though, led something like 180 of 200 laps. Now, of course, last time we were here in the spring, Bristol was on dirt. This is the first time the spring weekend at Bristol Motor Speedway had been on the original concrete surface since 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic. Wild times, crazy times, 4 years ago. Doesn't even seem like it. So this was the first time these guys were racing in this weather, these conditions, in a long time. And Christian Eckes goes out there, and not only does he win this race, not only does he lock himself into the playoffs, not only does he prove once again that he's going to be a championship threat in the Truck Series, he goes out and beats the best man to ever strap into a NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series vehicle, Kyle Busch, who is a 65-time winner. Didn't look that great in Las Vegas. Of course, won Atlanta. He's a full-time Cup driver. He's a 2-time Cup champ. He's an Xfinity champ. He's a easy Hall of Famer. Greatest driver in Xfinity Series history. One of the best to ever do it at the Cup level, at the highest level of stock car racing in America. But Saturday night, he was bested. Bested by Christian Eckes, who won the finale last year at Phoenix. Of course, wasn't in the championship 4. And maybe he is this year. Maybe he can replicate that success, win himself a ring. I don't know. But this is a really good start on a short track, nonetheless, which Phoenix, the championship track, that's a short track. Keep that in mind. Eckes looked really good. He looked really darn good. Kyle Busch led at some point. He said it, though. He thought they were a second, maybe even third-place truck. That doesn't happen very often for Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch ain't used to being the second or third place truck. He's used to being the first place truck, and the first place truck only. So for him to be bested like this, and dare I say, for him to be bested somewhat easily, was shocking. I'm sitting there, I'm watching this race, I'm thinking, okay, he's gonna get him eventually, right? Kyle Busch, he's gonna get him eventually. He's gonna get up on Eckes and he's gonna pass him and win this race, right? Those laps keep ticking down. And I'm looking on the Fox graphic, I'm seeing those numbers, those tenths of a second, they ain't going down. They might go down a little bit. They might go up a little bit. Mainly, though, they're steady. They're stabilized. If Eckes wasn't pulling away, he wasn't losing ground. And that's what the great drivers do. They're not always trying to, drive the truck as hard as they can. They're not always trying to do that. They manage these gaps. They manage it smartly. They can conserve tires, conserve fuel, conserve their truck till the end when they need it. That's what Eckes did. And Kyle Busch, try as he might, you saw him. He got close at the end. I don't know what the official margin of victory was, probably within, under 2-3 tenths of a second, because he drove that truck as hard as he could. He dive bombed into every corner that he could when it got down to it. He just didn't have enough. And he had a penalty. I think he had an equipment violation, drove back to the front. He could not get around Christian Eckes. It wasn't dirty air. It wasn't equipment. Christian Eckes just outdrove Kyle Busch. That's the deal. Mark Martin used to get outdriven in the Busch Series from time to time. Kyle Busch gets outdriven in the Busch Series from time to time. Kevin Harvick, Clint Bowyer, when the Cup guys used to drop down, they got outdriven. Not often, but they did sometimes, and this was one of those cases. Christian Eckes beat Kyle Busch. And another Cup guy, Zane Smith, who's having a horrendous start to his Cup Series season. We'll talk about that a little later on the show. He finishes third. Matt Crafton in fourth. Great run for Matt Crafton. Tyler Ankrum, call the man Lee Petty, Mr. Consistency, fifth on Saturday night. Corey Heim, sixth. Taylor Gray, seventh. Great start to the year for him. Rajah Caruth, who finishes eighth on Saturday night, but got his first career win at Vegas. I was interested to see what he'd do in this race. I'm always looking when a driver gets a big win, whether it be their first win, whether they break a winless streak, whatever. How do they follow it up? Is it going to be a fluke? Is it going to be a one-off? Is it going to be a race we look back at and say, oh, we thought that might save their career. We thought that might jumpstart their career. And then they went up and they laid an egg and finished 29th. This was not that for Rajah Caruth. He finishes eighth. Drives a solid race. We'll see what he can do, next week at COTA on a road course on a very, very challenging racetrack. Grant Enfinger finishes ninth. Lane Riggs finally gets the bad luck bus off his shoulder. Horrendous luck. I believe the first two races of the year, at least, maybe all three, involved in incidents not of his own doing. Finally shows what he can do. Bailey Curry in 11th, Caden Honeycutt 12th, Daniel Dye 13th, Jake Garcia 14th, Tanner Gray 15th. I was texting with Lane last night, and I said, man, it's great to see you finally have a race where you can show what you and this team can do when you're not having bad luck, when you're not struggling like that to get out from other people's messes. And he says, yeah, it felt great. It felt great to have a race like that, have a calm race. And the Truck Series rate, like the racing on Saturday night was really good. Second week in a row, second race in a row for them. The racing has been really, really good. And it's been clean. There's been no idiotic shenanigans like the Truck Series sometimes has. That's the best thing in all this to me. One guy I'm worried about, Ben Rhodes. We're only 4 races in. Take all this with a grain of salt. When you go over the points in a second, take all of it with a grain of salt. But Ben Rhodes, the defending series champ, a 2-time series champ, a perennial contender for the championship, a week in, a week out contender for the race win, is nowhere close early on. I know he was in that instant early, I think with Majeski, but man, that speed in that truck, he and Rich Lucius just aren't gelling this season for whatever reason. Great driver, crew chief duo, great team in ThorSport. Matt Crafton's been the best truck at ThorSport this year, it feels like, which we haven't been able to say that in a long time. Matt Crafton, he's a 3-time champ. He's a crafty vet, pardon the pun, but he hasn't won a race since Kansas in July of 2020. Ty Majeski's been good this year, kind of in the same boat as Crafton, just kind of trundling along, fast, consistent. Ben Rhodes, they need to flip a switch. I'm not sure COTA is the place for them to do it. It might be Darlington, might be Martinsville, might be Kansas, might be Charlotte, where they got their one and only win last year, until the playoffs came around. So we'll have to wait and see. But right now, I'm a little worried about Ben Rhodes. Nick Sanchez, 17th. He and Stuart Friesen, who ended up 22nd. They had some beef on pit road. I don't know if y'all saw that. Pretty entertaining fight video. Nick Sanchez just gave Stuart Friesen a big old smile as he, was trying to punch his lights out. Stephen Parsons, 18th. Connor Jones, 19th. That's Ty Dillon, 20th. He has not had a good start to the year with Rackley War. I talked to their team president, Willie Allen, in the offseason. He says, yeah, we're really confident. I think they have a chance to do something early on in the season. They're not showing it. Not showing it whatsoever. William Sawalek, 21st. Friesen, 22nd. Like I mentioned, Dean Thompson, 23rd. Timmy Hill, the Intimidator, 24th. Matt Mills, 25th. Thad Moffitt, 26th. Lawless Allen, 27th. Mason Massey, 28th. Mason Maggio, 29th for Floridian Motorsports, their best run. Spencer Boyd in 30th. Brett Holmes, 31st. That is Keith McGee in 32nd and Chase Purdy in 33rd. Not a good start to the year for him and Jason Chincheri either, man. Majeski 34th was involved in that wreck with Rhodes, and you got Trey Hutchins 35th, Justin S. Carroll in 36th. And you look at these point standings. Christian Eckes becomes the third driver this year to lock himself into the playoffs. The fourth driver to win a race. Of course, Kyle Busch won Atlanta, but not running for Truck Series points. Caruth, Sanchez, Eckes locked in with wins to the playoffs. Tyler Ankrum plus 84. If you had that on your bingo card, you're a millionaire. I did not have Ankrum making the playoffs, and here he is leading the regular season points and having the highest gap of anybody trying to make the playoffs. There's only 12 races left. He would have to lose an average of 7 points a race to miss the playoffs, which is possible. But there's something different about that team. Moving over to McAnally from Hattori. Maybe Hattori was the issue and not Tyler Ankrum. I was on the verge of calling Ankrum a bust last year. That might have been a little premature. You got Heim plus 67, Majeski plus 55. Feeling good about these guys. Taylor Gray plus 48. He's young and inexperienced. Can't call him a lock for the postseason yet. Crafton plus 40, looking the best Matt Crafton has looked in years. Enfinger plus 24 and 9th in the points. That's a great start to the year for them. Brett Holmes, 10th plus 5. 4 weeks in, 2 non-super speedways. Brett Holmes still in the playoff picture. Now, I know we had a rough race Saturday night, but anything can happen at COTA. Anything can happen at COTA. You have Daniel Dye. He's the first man out of the playoffs in 11th minus 5. Tanner Gray minus 9. Friesen 13th minus 10. Jake Garcia 14th minus 17. Then you have Ben Rhodes 15th minus 17. Again, like, it's concerning. It's a little concerning. Bailey Curry minus 19 and 16th. Timmy Hill minus 29 and 17th. Dean Thompson 18th minus 32. Spencer Boyd 19th minus 33. Caden Honeycutt 20th minus 37. Those are the way, or that is the way, rather, these point standings stack up as we head to Circuit of the Americas. So, let's stick with the Truck Series. Let's preview Circuit of the Americas for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. Alrighty, what do you say we preview some truck racing this weekend at Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas? It's going to be a very fun weekend of racing. Zane Smith won this race a year ago. I believe he also won it in 2022. And Todd Gilliland won this race in 2021. Since we went to COTA, the 38 truck is undefeated. It's 3-0. And Lane Riggs told me when he talked in the offseason, he says, I've never been to a road course in the top levels of NASCAR before. I'm a little nervous to have to uphold that legacy. We'll see what Lane can do behind the wheel. Before we don't have the entry list yet. Recording this Sunday evening, we don't have the entry list for these races yet. But there could be some big names that enter. Alex Bowman, Kyle Busch have been in these races in the past. Let's get the schedule up there, though. The weekend schedule. Practice for Circuit of the Americas Friday, March 22nd at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on FS1. So about 30 minutes or so of practice. Qualifying at 4 p.m. Eastern on Friday, March 22nd on FS1. NASCAR Race Day will air at 12:30 p.m. Eastern on FS1. So an hour of pre-race coverage on TV. That's Saturday, March 23rd. MRN will start their radio coverage at 1 p.m. Eastern with half an hour of pre-race coverage. And the race itself, the XPLL 225, the XPL 225 at Circuit of the Americas, FS1, 1:30 p.m. Eastern, MRN, and Sirius XM NASCAR Radio, as always, have the TV coverage. We just went over the point standings in our recap of Bristol. I'll have them scroll on the screen for you guys anyway, just to look over those. But again, the 38 truck is undefeated at Circuit of the Americas in the Truck Series. So I'm not going to pick Lane Riggs to win this race. I'll give my prediction a little later on in the show. But this is a tough race to predict because we don't know yet what Cup drivers are on the entry list. I believe Kyle Busch is running this race, although I might be wrong. It might be Corey LaJoie in this truck. I'm not sure. Rajat Caruth is going to be a popular pick because he's a recent first-time winner. Eckes isn't half bad on road courses. The guy I have my eye on, though, is Corey Heim because he's so multi-talented, so multifaceted, right? We saw him in that partial year KBM. Comes in, wins at Atlanta, wins at Gateway, wins at 2 very different tracks. Last year, he won at Martinsville, He won somewhere else too. Mid-Ohio. He's won at a road course before. He's won at basically every type of racetrack there is on this circuit, on this grueling NASCAR schedule. That's why I have so much faith in him to go out and maybe win this race. I mean, you know, it's hard to predict these races. It really is. But Corey Heim is a really good pick each and every week because, no, he's not going to win every race. He might only win but 2 or 3 this year, but he's always going to be in contention for the most part. He's going to be just that steady, consistent force. He's going to win stages, lead laps. I'll go ahead and pick Corey Heim to win this race. I'll do it because I just have more confidence in him than any other full-time driver. Since we don't know the entry list yet, since we're recording this late Sunday evening, I'll go ahead and pick Corey Heim. I have confidence. It's Heim time, man. It's Heim time in Austin, Texas. I have Corey Heim winning this race. Now, you look at other road course guys in the Truck Series that are really good. At Tricon Garage, the team that Corey drives for, Taylor Gray, Tanner Gray, they're always strong. Matt Crafton, he's good everywhere. Eckes, good everywhere. Sanchez, good everywhere. Ankrum, can he continue his torrid start? That'll be a good question. Ben Rhodes, road courses aren't necessarily his strength, but what if a good day here kickstarts his season, gets him going in the right direction, not just in the points, but looking to get back to that championship contending spot. So a lot of really interesting stories here. This will be the 5th race of 23 in the season, the 5th race of 16 in the regular season. You only have 12 more shots to win your way into the playoffs. 3 spots are already taken. Only 7 spots left in the Truck Series playoff picture, the field. So you better get one now. If you're a Brett Holmes, a Grant Enfinger, I don't know if that pressure's on you to win yet. But every week that somebody else locks in a spot, that a regular wins and locks in a spot to the playoffs, you got to be getting more nervous down there at the bubble. Because if somebody, say Rhodes wins this weekend, he wouldn't be an underdog, but he's below the cut line right now. Say he wins. Dean Thompson has a drive. Jake Garcia has a career day. What if they win? Then you knock Holmes out. Enfinger's on the bubble. Crafton's seat starts getting a little warmer. So, a lot of interesting storylines, a lot of interesting variables. Let's be honest here. Sometimes the guys in the Truck Series lose their marbles. They don't always drive smart. They don't always make the best decisions. Going to a track like COTA, we saw the end of that Cup race last year. We saw the shenanigans that went down. But I have faith. 2 weeks in a row, these guys have run shenanigan-free races. I like that. I like that a lot. We'll see where it goes. Corey Heim is my pick to win. You know what? Let's go ahead. Before we talk Cup Series Bristol, before we preview the Cup Series race at COTA, we got to talk about little brother, the Xfinity Series. They were off this weekend. They had their first off weekend of the year at Bristol after Phoenix. Let's preview their race in Austin at Circuit of the Americas. All right, moving on now to the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Let's get that schedule up like trucks and Cup. No entry list yet. There could be a few guys that enter in. I believe Kyle Larson is running this race in the 17 for Hendrick. Great driver. Obviously, it's going to be a strong car, a strong entry if it is run indeed at Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. AJ Allmendinger is probably the favorite for this race. I'll go ahead and say he's my pick to win. I mean, he has the all-time record for Xfinity Series wins on road courses, first road course of the year. But there's one other guy, a colleague teammate of his, actually, that I know everybody is really focused on. That's SVG, Shane Van Gisbergen, also running the Cup race, his Cup debut this year. Let's take a look at that schedule. Practice 5:30 p.m. Eastern on March 22nd. That's on FS1, rather. Qualifying at 6 p.m. Eastern, also on March 22nd, FS1. About 30 minutes of practice there. The Focus South 250 is at 5 p.m. Eastern on March 23rd. That's FS1, PRN, Sirius XM, NASCAR Radio. PRN starts their coverage at 4:30 Eastern Saturday for the race. FS1 at 4 p.m. Eastern, a full hour of a NASCAR race day. Before we really dive into this race, let's take a look at these point standings. Of course, you have Austin Hill with 2 wins. Chandler Smith was his Phoenix win. John Hunter Nemechek was your Vegas winner, but like Busch and Cup or in trucks, he is running for Cup points, not Xfinity, so that doesn't count towards the playoffs. SHR, off to the best possible start they could be off to without a win. You know, they have Custer plus 54, Herbst plus 50, just carrying over their success from last year. Jesse Love is plus 39, Sheldon Creed plus 34. Allmendinger's been quiet, but he is plus 28. Allgaier plus 23, of course. That heartbreaking defeat at Phoenix. Brandon Jones plus 22. Sammy Smith plus 18. Parker Kligerman plus 9 to the cut line. And Fast Pasta Anthony Alfredo plus 2 currently your last man in. Ryan Sieg, first man out, minus 2. Then you have SVG, Shane Van Gisbergen, minus 7. Jeremy Clements, minus 25. Parker Retzloff, minus 28. Brennan Poole, minus 28. Ryan Ellis, minus 29. BJ McLeod, minus 29 as well. Leland Honeyman at 20th, minus 30. And then Blaine Perkins, 21st, minus 38. One more guy. You have Weatherman, who's 22nd, minus 40. But one more guy that I really want to point out, Sam Mayer, 23rd, minus 51. Logano not having a great start to the year in Cup. Horrible start to the year. In fact, Kyle Busch, not a great start to the year. We talked about Rhodes and Truck. Zane Smith and Cup not having a good start to the year. Mayer, 23rd, minus 51. Horrendous season. Every interview he does, it seems like he's talking about it being a horrible year because it seems like every interview he's doing is after a crash. The only race he hasn't crashed out of this year, I believe, was Atlanta, where he finished 11th. Daytona, early incident. Vegas, Phoenix, early incidents. Just a horrid start to the year for Sam Mayer. He really needs something to go right this weekend at COTA. Got his first career win last year at Mid-Ohio. Or not Mid-Ohio, I'm sorry, Road America. Then he won Watkins Glen. Then he won the Roval. He can win on road courses. He absolutely can win on road courses. So, you know, this is a race for him that's big. I think he's going to be fine. I think he can point his way in. He's in a JRM car, one of the best cars in the field. This race, though, is biggest, if not for Allmendinger, for a chance at another win, for SVG, for Shane Van Gisbergen. Long-term in NASCAR, his hope is Cup, right? His hope is full-time Cup, chasing titles. But right now in the present, for this season in Xfinity, he wants that championship. He wants a race win. This is his best shot so far. His best shot so far. Of course, you'll have the Glen. You know, you'll have Sonoma, Road America, all those other races that the Xfinity Series will go to on road courses. But COTA, I don't know what it is. Of course, you'll have Chicago Street Race as well, which you'll probably be the favorite for. But COTA, something about that track and producing unlikely winners. Ross Chastain, first career win in 2022. How about that? Tyler Reddick got his first win in 2311 Racing in 2024. Who won? Or not 2024, last year, 23. So, you know, this track produces some unlikely winners. I'd say Todd Gilliland at the time was maybe an unlikely winner. You know, Xfinity, I feel like theirs been pretty predictable. Chase Elliott won the first Cup race there in 2021. That wasn't a surprise at the time. Might be a surprise now. But SVG, this is a big race for him. You know, see what it's like on a road course in equal conditions with everybody. I know Indy last year on the Cup side, he finished 10th, but this is the Xfinity car. This is different. So that's the biggest question to me in this race. Can SVG have a shot to win? If he does, can he execute in the big moments? Allmendinger's been close, nearly won the Cup race here in 2022. Allmendinger dominated this race. I have hardly ever seen a car as hooked up as AJ Allmendinger's car was in the COTA Xfinity race last year. If they bring the same car, oh boy, it's going to be tough for the competition to get him. Next up, a few seconds away, we're going to break down the Cup race at Bristol, and then we'll preview the NASCAR Cup Series at COTA. All right, let's recap a little bit of this Bristol race, shall we? The Food City 500. Denny Hamlin gets the win in what was a great race. A race that had a ton, and I mean a ton, of passing. 54 lead changes, a record not just for Bristol Motor Speedway, but for any NASCAR short track ever. The most passes at a track besides Daytona or Talladega, I believe, since 1981. That is 43 years ago. A race that kind of felt like a perfect mix of 80s and 90s NASCAR. You only have 5 cars finish on the lead lap. The drivers that conserve their tires most, a.k.a. the veterans. Look at the winner. Look at the top 3. Hamlin, Truex, Keselowski. 2 of them are champions. Hamlin has 52 wins, probably the greatest driver to never win a championship so far. The veterans won out. The drivers with the most experience, the drivers with late model experience won out. Keep that in mind. Richmond last year was a race where tire conservation played a huge role. Kyle Larson won that one in the spring. So maybe Denny Hamlin can already be looked at as the favorite in a couple weeks at Richmond, when we go to that race on Easter, the evening of Easter. But a really good race, a race that was obviously dominated by the tire conversation. Goodyear's Craig Stucker was being interviewed in the middle of the race, which I'm not sure I've ever seen that happen before. Were the tires too soft? Maybe, but not by much. It was unfortunate there were blowouts, unfortunate there were incidents, yes, but attrition is what NASCAR isn't necessarily all about. It's about the intense racing, but attrition should be a big part of our sport. It's the only sport where attrition really comes into play from a mechanical standpoint. If a Gatorade cooler stops working at a football game, if one of the folding chairs doesn't, fold out correctly at an NBA game, that's not really going to impact anything. If one nut, one bolt is loose on a NASCAR stock car, that could be the difference in between winning the race and blowing a motor. The difference between winning a race and ending in the wall, ending in the catch fence. So, it's a big deal. Attrition, mechanical failures. Now, I don't want to see tire blowouts left and right. We don't want a 2008 Brickyard 400 situation every single week. But what we do want is tires to where we want these drivers to be on the hairy edge of control. We want to see, guys like Kyle Larson, Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney wrangling these cars around these tracks each week. They wouldn't be in the Cup Series. They wouldn't be the best 40 drivers in America if they couldn't do stuff like this. If these cars were easy to drive, anybody could do it. But guess what? Nobody can do it except these guys. And they proved that yesterday. Zane Smith had an ARCA brakes moment, but he was the only car to DNF. That's pretty good for a race at Bristol that saw a lot of attrition. Saw guys like Stenhouse, Cindric, Busch have tire issues, blow tires, go around. I can't recap everything here in, maybe 10, 12 minutes, but it was a really good race. I mean, just a ton of passing. The comers and goers in this race are really interesting because it wasn't like on a long green flag run, somebody fell off or somebody came to the front. Ty Gibbs had a rocket ship. He probably had the best car there until the final 40, 50 laps when, as an experienced young sophomore driver at only 21 years old, he didn't have the experience of a Denny Hamlin, a Martin Truex, a Brad Keselowski to conserve those tires. Same thing probably happened to Josh Berry, who I think was running third with like 25 to go, qualified second. Great short track driver, fades to 12th. You saw Ryan Blaney, who is very experienced, but not like Truex, Keselowski, and Hamlin, fade to 16th. We saw Justin Haley fade to 17th. Kaz Grala faded to 19th. They had good race cars. They just couldn't conserve their tires. The pace fell from 15.5-second laps down to 19 seconds, close to 20 seconds. At some points in this race, it was because guys were being conservative, ultra conservative. In fact, in that middle part of the race, it looked like they were crawling around the last Great Coliseum. They were just saving their tires. But you go on a 70, 80 lap run with these things, and you're running those speeds anyway. So it was a really interesting race to me. Ty Gibbs dominated, swept the stages, led 137 laps. He's going to win a race this year. I'd be shocked if he doesn't. If he misses the playoffs, and we're only 5 races in, if he misses the playoffs, it would be a massive collapse. Ty Gibbs right now, I wouldn't put him in my championship 4, but I'd at least put him in my round of 12, if not round of 8 right now. They're fast. They've been fast on a variety of racetracks as well. That's the scary thing. Like, it hasn't been a stretch of short tracks or road courses, intermediate, super speedways. It's been Vegas, Phoenix, Bristol. Very different tracks. And I believe he also finished top 10 in Atlanta, a wildly different track. Showed a little bit of speed at Daytona, a wildly different track. We go to COTA, first road course of the season. This weekend, we're going to preview that race a little bit later in the show. Completely different track. And if he finishes well there, which he finished 9th there a year ago, finished 9th in the Spring Richmond race a year ago as well, we could be talking about Ty Gibbs getting that first career win soon, because you run as well as he is, and eventually that first win is going to come. You get some guys that maybe didn't have great days. Kyle Busch, 2 horrendous weeks in a row. Bubba Wallace had some issues. Joey Logano was just having a horrible start to the year. We saw Tyler Reddick be involved in that skirmish, and I mentioned Tyler Reddick had a bit of an ARCA brakes moment, or Zane Smith did, rather, running into Reddick. Continued on and then had engine issues. William Byron got in the wall early in the race, was kind of pushed up into the wall. Guys were getting loose, getting into that wall early, and unfortunately, just couldn't get back in the race. Noah Gregson, 34th. Unfortunate, 2 really good weeks for him in a row, and things just didn't really pan out. Let's look at the point standings as we leave Bristol, head into COTA, so that way we don't have to look at them when we are looking towards COTA. Let's see here. This does lock Denny Hamlin into the playoffs. By the way, I'm not sure we are too concerned about Denny Hamlin being locked into the playoffs, but he is locked in. 5 drivers have won through 5 races. Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, William Byron, Daniel Suarez, Martin Truex is plus 75. Ty Gibbs plus 68. This is to the playoff cut line. Blaney plus 67. Chase Elliott plus 42. Ross Chastain rounds out your top 10 plus 41. Tyler Reddick is 11th plus 27. Alex Bowman 12th plus 22. Brad Keselowski 13th plus 15. Chris Buescher 14th plus 15. Then you have Nemechek who's plus 14 and 15th. Those numbers are a little off there. That's my bad. Kyle Busch is currently the last man in, plus 12 to the cut line over Michael McDowell, who sits 17th, minus 12, first man out. Bubba Wallace goes from in to out, 18th, minus 15 to the playoff cut line. Chase Briscoe, 19th, minus 15 as well. Eric Jones, 20th, minus 21. Austin Cindric, 21st, minus 29. Corey LaJoie, 22nd, minus 36. Ricky Stenhouse, 23rd, 38 points back of Kyle Busch for that last playoff spot. Carson Hocevar, 42 points back in 24th. Daniel Hemrick, 25th, minus 46. Joey Logano, horrendous start to the year for him. 26th, minus 48. He has never missed the championship 4 in an even-numbered year since its since its introduction in 2014, and right now that's not looking great. Josh Berry, 27th, minus 48. Justin Haley, 28th, minus 50. Todd Gilliland, 29th, minus 59. Austin Dillon, 30th, minus 63. Denny Hamlin, your winner of Bristol. Let's preview Circuit of the Americas. Alrighty, let's preview COTA just as we have done with Truck and Xfinity. Got to start out, of course, with that weekend schedule. You can see that scrolling down at the bottom of your screen. Practice is at 10 a.m. Eastern this coming Saturday, March 23rd. That'll be aired on Fox Sports 2, not FS1, FS2, radio, PRN, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. Qualifying 11:30 a.m. Eastern on Saturday. FS1, not FS2, just inverse the practice. PRN, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio as the radio coverage. The race itself, the Echo Park Automotive Grand Prix, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, March 24th on Sunday. Fox has the TV coverage for that. Sirius XM NASCAR Radio and PRN, of course, have the call. 2 big names on the entry list. One we already knew was going to be on here for a while. Of course, that's Shane Van Gisbergen running in the 16. So, you know what that means? AJ Allmendinger's not in this race. He's in Xfinity, but he is not in the NASCAR Cup Series race. Kind of, wish Project 91 would have made a return here and kept AJ in the race, but he got to run Bristol, so he probably had a fun time doing that. Kamui Kobayashi is in this race. Of course, he ran, I believe, Indy last year for 2311. They have acquired the naming rights to the 50, the number from the money team. They will run the 50 car as a 2311 car this weekend, so 3 2311 cars in the fold. Timmy Hill is bringing MBM Motorsports. That's Motorsports Business Management Motorsports. That's a mouthful. Say that 3 times fast. He's bringing them back to the Cup Series with the 66 Ford Mustang Dark Horse. Timmy from Port Tobacco, Maryland, a driver that we see frequently in the Truck Series, full-time in the Truck Series. As a matter of fact, this year for Hill Motorsports, his family-owned team. So good to see Timmy back in the Cup Series. Remember 2020, he won some iRacing events and had some buzz and went to Darlington, and then the rest of the season just really didn't go very well for him. TV schedule, we do have to look at that as well. The weekend schedule, I meant to do that, but NASCAR race day will start at, let's see here, 2 p.m. Eastern on FS1. So you get an hour coverage over there, and then at 3 p.m. Eastern, you get half an hour coverage on Fox, an hour and a half total of pre-race coverage on TV. MRN, or PRN rather, will start their radio coverage at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, so about an hour of pre-race coverage over there. And if you missed the Xfinity race Saturday, you can watch it on Sunday evening at 11 p.m. Eastern on FS2, and they're re-airing practice and qualifying for Cup, and the Truck Series and Xfinity Series races are re-airing Sunday morning as well. Shane Van Gisbergen, I know some people are picking him to win this race. I'm not going to go that far. I think he'll be a contender. I think he can run top 10 in a very stout Kaulig car that nearly won this race in 2022. I think when looking at the main contenders, I don't know whether to put Chase Elliott as a main contender or not. Bristol snapped a streak of 8 races without a top 10 for him. He finished 8th there. He has not really been a contender aside from, Watkins Glen in 22. He has not really been a contender at a road course race with the next-gen car. Kyle Larson won that Watkins Glen race, and he also won... Did he win the Roval in 2022? I honestly don't remember who won that race, but he's just always a contender. Good everywhere we go. Daniel Suarez will probably be in the mix. Ross Chastain won at COTA in 2022, but the two guys I really have my eye on, aside probably from SVG, Tyler Reddick in the number 45 car. He's good, man. He dominated this race a year ago, and I mean dominated this race a year ago. And then William Byron, who was in the mix to win this race last year. Obviously didn't get it done. Never mind. A. John Allmendinger is in this race. He's in the 13 car. Never mind. I was wrong. Glad he's in this race. He'll be a contender. Never mind. But 3 guys. But Byron won Watkins Glen last year. His first win on a road course. Very good in that race. Dominated. Whipped the field in that Watkins Glen race. Truex, Bell, they'll probably be up there. They might lead some laps. Chris Buescher, of course. Briscoe usually a threat on road courses. But I think Allmendinger, I think Reddick, I think Byron. Those are your main 3 you got to watch. Of course, you got to watch Larson everywhere. You can't call Chase Elliott a dark horse, but I would be surprised if he was as in the mix as some people think he's going to be. It's hard for me to pick against Tyler Reddick, so I'm not going to. I'm going to pick Tyler Reddick to win this race. Now, as crazy as COTA got last year, of course, with the end of that race, all the restart shenanigans, the restart tomfoolery, I hope we don't see that much, 5 wide into turn 1. I really don't. They made some new moves with the restart zone at COTA. I'm not sure how much that's going to impact that, but I just hope these guys keep their heads and their wits about them on Sunday afternoon, because that was embarrassing. COTA was a great race last year until the final 20 laps, when it seemed, like you're watching reruns of a TV show at 12:30 in the morning in a, deserted hotel. I was specific, but you're just watching the same thing over and over again. You're watching Reddick clear somebody and then a massive pile up, a 12-car pile up in turn 1. Same thing over and over and over. As a fan, it was just tiring to watch. Hey, speaking of Todd Gilliland, Michael McDowell, I'd say McDowell more so than Gilliland. Watch out for him. Won Indy last year. I think if we were going to the Indy road course, I'd feel better about McDowell as a playoff pick. But any road course, you can bet on him at least to get some stage points. Probably run inside the top 10. Look competitive. Might have had a chance to win the Glen last year if not for an electrical issue, an engine issue that put them behind the 8 ball and ended their day. So, McDowell's going to be up there. Gilliland led laps of the Glen in 2022. People forget that he's a pretty decent road racer. He won at COTA in 2021 in that 38 truck. Zane Smith won at COTA in 2022 and 2023. And last year, I think it was mainly on strategy, but he had to outpace Kyle Busch to do so. So Zane Smith is a 2-time winner at Circuit of the Americas in trucks. So, don't discount that. Just so many storylines going into this race, as there's been every year this year. Kyle Busch, who won at COTA in 2021 in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, he needs a big weekend. Joey Logano, never been a great road racer, but he needs a good weekend in the worst way. Bubba Wallace, 2 not great weekends in a row. He really needs a good weekend. So 3 in a row, really, if you count, Vegas. I know he ran well there, but had the incident late. So, some guys that really need some turnarounds. I'd say Byron's included in that list. 2 top 10s, one of which was, of course, his Daytona 500 win, but also the top 10 at Vegas, where I know we had the garbage bag, but still, it was barely inside the top 10. It was a 10th. And you look at Atlanta, you look at Phoenix, you look at Bristol, just not much going for them. Chase Elliott need to string 2 good weeks in a row together. Daniel Suarez been pretty solid since his Atlanta win. he's looking to keep his solid streak going. Chastain looking for a win. So there's so many storylines going into this race. But give me Tyler Reddick to win this thing. That's who I feel the most confidence in as we go to Circuit of the Americas. That is the show, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for sticking with me. These shows are going to be a little long. They might be a little long-winded, but like I said in the open, you don't have to pull on my leg to talk NASCAR. So glad to do it. Again, big thank you to Michael and the whole team at E5280 Sports, Elevation 5280 Sports, for letting me join the Elevation 5280 Sports Network, elevation5280.com. You can find them on Twitter and Facebook at Elevation 5280 Sports. I am Samuel Stubbs from Below the Line. Talk to you after COTA as we head to Richmond next weekend. Goodbye, everybody.